Hello everyone, my name is Prashant Agrawal and I'm working as Senior Analytics Specialist SA in AWS, where I primarily focus on Amazon Open Source Service. And today I will be talking about how you can retain more data for less using storage steering with Amazon Open Source Service. So before getting into the storage steering, let me take a step back and talk about what is Amazon Open Source Service. So Open Source Service is a fully managed service that makes it easy to deploy, operate, and scale OpenSearch along with legacy Elasticsearch cluster in AWS Cloud. Let's take a quick detour and talk about what exactly is the OpenSearch. So OpenSearch is a community-driven open source search and analytics suite which is derived from Apache 2.0 licensed Elasticsearch 7.10.2 and Kibana 7.10.2. So talking about the data, here is some numbers where worldwide data is expected to hit around 175 gigabytes by the end of 2025. And out of those 175, 50%, around 90 gigabyte is expected to be generated only from the IoT devices. And out of those, 80% of these data set is unstructured. So where 71% of enterprise reported that unstructured data is growing way faster than the business data. So let's see what are some common data sets and how does that solve the business problem. So when we talk about the application, you can send application specific data to open source service to know if your applications are up and running and serving the request with low latency. And if there are any errors which you want to find out or if you want to troubleshoot the issues by analyzing the logs. Then on the security side, you could use OpenSearch to store security logs, which could help you to identify if there are any suspicious activity or any suspicious log into the application, or if there are any fraudulent activity happening on your application. Lastly, observability helps you to get insight into your infrastructure and troubleshoot the problem in near real time, which will directly influence the overall customer experience by building the resilient apps. So as data grows, the cost of storing these data grows significantly as well. So when we talk about log data, you might not need all the data to be accessed all the time with low latency, and probably you can retain those infrequently accessed or older data at a scale very storing that older data could be cost prohibitive. And also you cannot perform the same analysis on the data what you have into the hot tier like into the recent data versus what you can do into the older data, because you might be running some query intensive data you might have, because older or infrequent data is more query intensive than the recent data, and you would want to reduce the impact of such query so that it does not impact your production clusters or production data. But what if you just want to store those data for longer duration? Maybe you might have some regulatory or the compliance region. So in that case, you will still need to archive the data for longer duration. So let's see what is the tiered storage options with Amazon Open Source Service and how it can help you to reduce the cost. So basically, there are three storage tiers. Hot tier, basically, hot tier is nothing but which enables you to keep recent data readily accessible and indexed in high performance storage to enable querying and conducting the real time analysis on those data. Then ultra warm and cold storage helps you to keep older data still available for analysis in lower cost block storage or maybe a durable storage like Amazon S3. So where you can run the maybe like you can run reporting on the older data which you can share with broader organization, or maybe if you have to store data into the cold tier for longer durations, then you can refer the or you can leverage the cold storage. So talking about Ultra Warm, this feature was launched in May 2020 and really got a lot of traction from various customers. And one of the reason is the cost, because in some cases you can save up to 90% of the cost when you store the data with Ultra Warm. And Ultra Warm nodes are optimized for caching and running the query for indexes stored in the S3. And these queries are fast enough to run interactive log analytics as well as plotting the visualization and dashboard. In one single domain, you can store maximum up to 3 petabytes of data. But the only trade off between the hot tier and the ultra warm is that data stored into the ultra warm is immutable. So you cannot modify any data when it is into the ultra warm storage. But if need arises, you can bring back those data to the hot tier, perform the updates, and then send back those data again to the warm tier. Now, talking about the cold storage, so it was launched somewhere around May 2021, and it decoupled the data stored into Amazon S3 to the compute running on the ultra-warm data nodes. With cold storage, you can virtually store any amount of data. So as you're just archiving all those data to Amazon S3 and pay the near about S3 pricing for the same. Then you can use the policy which we call index state management policy that can help you to move data automatically from the ultra warm to the cold tier. And then there is the OpenSearch dashboard UI as well, where you can easily see all the indices into different tier like hot, ultra warm, or cold storage. And at the same time, you can use the UI to move the indices from one tier to other. Now, the only trade-off with the cold storage is that in this tier, data is not searchable. So you will have to reattach the data to ultra warm nodes if you want to run any query on those data. This is really a good feature for archiving purpose where you would like to store data into durable storage for longer duration if you have any regulatory or the compliance need to store the data for longer duration. So, in a nutshell, you can use the hot tier for faster access, which requires the low latency for your data. Then you can use the ultra warm tier to store large amount of read-only data with lower storage cost. And then you can use the cold storage to extend the life cycle of data, which might not be queried too often and just needed for some compliance purpose. So this concludes a quick overview of storage steering. If you would like to know more about ultra warm and cold storage or looking for a demo, please check out our getting started page and a link of demo which talks in depth about the feature. So thank you for listening and feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions.